Hey guys, tonight we're slipping back into a kitchen that smells like sage and warm butter, into a house where the windows have fogged from the heat of the oven and the whole day seems to hum with quiet anticipation. It is the morning of a family holiday in 1950s America, and somewhere down the hall a radio is playing something soft, and somewhere in the yard a screen door is swinging shut, and everything, absolutely everything, is about to begin. Before we settle in, I want to thank the listener who suggested this one. You wrote to me about your grandmother's kitchen and the way she moved through a holiday like she was conducting an orchestra, only she could hear, and it stayed with me for weeks. This channel grows because of ideas like yours, the small specific memories you send that turn into whole evenings for the rest of us. So thank you, truly. If you have a moment, a like, or a quiet comment telling me where you are listening from means more than you know. And if you enjoy these, you can subscribe so the next one finds you. We're also on Spotify now, so if you would rather drift off with just the sound of my voice and no screen at all, the link is waiting for you down in the description. Now, go ahead and get comfortable. Dim the lights until the room goes soft and golden. Turn on a fan if you like that low, steady hush. Pull the blanket up, find the cool side of the pillow, and let your shoulders come down from wherever they have been all day. And while you settle, let yourself wonder a few things with me. What did the morning of a holiday actually feel like in 1955 before anyone else in the house was awake? What did the kitchen smell like at 5 a.m, with the first pot of coffee going and the turkey not yet in the oven? How many hands did it take to make a single afternoon look effortless? What did it sound like when the relatives finally arrived, all coats and cold air and voices in the front hall? And who, when the day was finally over and the last plate was dried, got to sit down first? Let those questions carry you gently backward, and just like that, it is 1955. The coffee is already on. Frost is melting off the kitchen window. Someone is pulling the good china down from the high shelf, and the longest, warmest, most exhausting day of the year is only just beginning. Let's start well before the holiday itself, in the ordinary weeks that came before. It begins as a feeling more than a plan, a small shift in the air of the house sometime in early November. Your mother starts keeping a list on the back of an envelope tucked behind the flour canister. The good tablecloth gets pulled out to check for stains. There is talk, low and practical, about how many are coming this year and whether the leaf for the dining table is still up in the attic. Nothing has happened yet, not really, and yet everything has already started. The whole house has quietly begun to lean toward one single day. You notice it first in small things. The way your mother pauses at the window over the sink a moment longer than usual, doing arithmetic in her head, counting chairs and place settings and the cousins who may or may not make the drive. The way certain conversations happen after you are supposed to be asleep, your parents' voices coming up soft through the floor register, deciding things. Who will bring the pies? Whether Aunt Ruth is still cross about last year? How much the bird will cost this time? These are grown-up matters, and you catch only the edges of them, but you understand that something large is being assembled, plank by careful plank. The list on the envelope grows. It gets a second envelope. Your mother writes in the small hours, in a hand that slants when she's tired, and she crosses things off with a satisfaction you can feel from across the room. There is a rhythm to these weeks, a slow tightening, like a clock being wound. The days themselves are unremarkable, grey and short, the light going early. But underneath them runs this quiet current of preparation, and it touches everyone. Your father is sent up into the attic one cold Saturday to find the table leaf, and he comes down dusty and triumphant, holding it like a trophy. It gets leaned against the dining room wall where it will wait. The extra chairs are located, the folding ones from the basement, the good one from your grandmother's room. Someone remembers that she sends you down an aisle for something, and you go proudly, a small soldier on a real mission, and you bring it back and she nods and it goes in the cart and you feel, briefly, essential. The smells change as you move through the store. The green, watery smell of the produce. The cold, clean smell near the butcher's case. The warm, dry smell of the aisle with the bread and the bags of sugar. At the butcher's, your mother waits her turn among the other women, and when it comes, she gives him the number, the weight she has calculated to feed everyone, coming with enough left over for the sandwiches that will follow for days. He nods and disappears into the back and returns with the bird, so much larger than seems possible, and wraps it in white paper while she watches to be sure. Then comes the long, slow business of the checkout, the cart so full now that things must be balanced on top of other things. The clerk rings each item and calls the price aloud, and the numbers add up in a way that makes your mother's mouth go a little tight, because this is the expensive week of the year and everyone knows it. She counts out the bills carefully. Nothing here is casual. Every can and bag has been chosen and weighed and paid for out of a budget that has room for exactly this, and no more. And then the walk to the car, or the ride home on the bus with the sacks between your feet, the potatoes riding low, the bird taking up a whole seat of its own. Your arms ache pleasantly by the time you reach the door. You carry in what you can, setting the bags on the kitchen table, where your mother will unpack them in an order only she understands. This to the icebox, that to the pantry, the bird to the coldest shelf where it will wait its turn. There is something deeply satisfying in it, this hauling home of a holiday. It is harder now to feel that weight when so much arrives in a single delivery or a quick trip through a bright store with everything already trimmed and boxed and priced. But then the holiday came home in your arms. You could feel exactly how much it weighed. And setting those heavy bags on the table, watching your mother begin to sort them, you understood in a way you could not have explained that the day itself had just come into the house, and that from here it would only grow. It is the evening before the holiday now, and the kitchen has become the most important room in the house. The oven has been wiped out. The counters are cleared in a way they never are on ordinary nights. Bread is torn into a great bowl and left to go stale for the stuffing. Pies are already cooling on the windowsill, their crusts pinched by hand, and the whole room smells of cinnamon and butter and something faintly like the promise of tomorrow. Your mother works late, long after you're sent to bed, and the last thing you hear before sleep is the soft sound of her still moving down there in the light. The kitchen at this hour has a particular warmth, both from the oven that has been running and from the low yellow bulb overhead that makes everything look softer than it does by day. Outside the window it is full dark and cold, the kind of November dark that presses against the glass, but inside the air is thick and sweet and close. It is the cosiest the house will be all season, this one evening of steady work, and you want to stay in it longer than you are allowed. Everything is in motion, but slowly, deliberately. Your mother has 100 small tasks, and she moves between them without hurry, because hurry leads to mistakes, and there is no room for mistakes tonight. She chops the onions and the celery for the stuffing, and the smell of them sharpens the air. She tears the bread into the big yellow bowl, handful after handful, and leaves it out to dry. She sets the cranberries to simmer and they pop softly in the pot, one and then another, filling the kitchen with a tart red smell. She rolls out the dough for the last pie on a floured board, her sleeves pushed up, a smudge of flour on her cheek that she does not know is there. You are allowed to linger for a while, sitting at the edge of the table where you will not be underfoot, and you watch her hands. They move with a certainty that has nothing to do with recipes written down. She knows the feel of the dough, the colour the cranberry should turn, the exact moment a pie is done by its smell alone. These are things she carries in her body, learned from her own mother in a kitchen much like this one, and passed forward without a single word ever being written. The pies come out and go to the windowsill to cool, 3 of them, their tops golden and their edges pinched into little waves. The cinnamon smell rises off them and fills the whole downstairs. You're given, if you're lucky, a scrap of leftover dough with sugar and cinnamon on it, baked flat and hot, and it is the finest thing you've ever eaten, better somehow than anything the actual day will bring. Then you are sent up to bed, protesting softly, and you go. But you lie awake a while in the dark, listening. Below you the kitchen keeps working. You hear the tap run and shut off. You hear the oven door open and close on its heavy hinge. You hear the small clink of a spoon against a bowl, the scrape of a chair, your mother's footsteps crossing and recrossing the floor. She'll be down there for hours yet, long after the house has gone quiet everywhere else. There is a comfort in that sound that stays with a person for life. To lie warm in your bed and hear the one who loves you still working below, still preparing the good day to come, is to feel held in a way that has no name. You do not think as a child about how tired she must be, about the aching feet and the long hours still ahead of her before dawn. You only think how safe it is, how right, that she is down there in the light while the rest of the house sleeps, and that, perhaps, is the truest part of it. The night before was hers alone, the quiet labour no one would ever fully see, offered up freely so that the morning could arrive looking like it had cost nothing at all. Let's move to the morning itself, to the hour before dawn when only one person is awake. It is cold and blue dark, and your mother is already downstairs. She's been up since before 5, tying on an apron over her house dress, lighting the oven, starting the first pot of coffee that no one else will drink for hours. The house is silent in a way it will not be again all day. There is something almost sacred about this hour, the quiet before the storm, when the whole enormous effort of the holiday rests on a single pair of hands, moving carefully through a dark kitchen. The window over the sink is black still, and her own reflection looks back at her from it, faint and doubled. Outside, the street lies frozen and empty, every house dark, no car moving anywhere. She is the only lit window on the block, and she knows it, and there is a strange dignity in that, in being the first one up, the one the whole day depends upon. She does not resent it. It is simply hers, the way the earliest hour has always been the mother's hour. She works quietly, so as not to wake the house. The coffee percolates on the stove, its smell reaching out into the cold dark room, and she pours herself a cup and drinks it standing up, both hands around the warmth of it, watching the oven come up to heat. This is the only cup she will drink in peace all day, and she takes it slowly, in the last stillness she will have for many hours. There is no radio yet, no voices, no small feet on the stairs, only the tick of the oven warming and the low hum of the icebox and her own breath. Then she begins. The bird must be dealt with first, lifted from the cold shelf and set on the counter, unwrapped, patted dry, the great heavy weight of it wrestled into the roasting pan. She works it with butter and salt, reaching into it, filling it with the stuffing she made the night before, and it is cold, cold enough to numb her fingers, but she does not stop. This is the anchor of the whole day, and it must go in early, and so it goes in, the oven door closing on it with a solid final sound. And now the day is truly launched. From this moment there will be no real rest for her, but in this first hour there is still a peace to it, a rhythm she can control. She washes her hands and dries them on her apron. She sets water to boil. She lays out on the counter, in the order she will need them, the things the morning will require, the way a person lays out tools before a long task. Everything in its place, everything anticipated. She has done this so many times that her hands know the way even when her mind is still half in sleep. The dark outside begins to thin, so gradually you would not notice unless you were watching. The black at the window goes to deep blue, and then to a grey that means the world is turning back toward light. Somewhere far off a dog barks. A truck passes on the main road. The town is beginning slowly to wake, and she is ahead of all of it, hours ahead, already deep into the work. It is a solitude that is hard to picture now, when the whole world is awake at every hour, and no morning is ever truly quiet. But then, this hour belonged to her completely. No one saw it. No one thanked her for it. The family upstairs slept on, warm and unknowing, and would come down later to a kitchen already full of good smells, never guessing at the cold, dark hour that had made it so. And there is something almost holy in that, in the giving of a thing that will never be seen. She stands in the growing light with her second cup of coffee gone cold beside her, the bird already roasting, the day already well begun, and she takes one more moment, just one, to stand in the quiet before it all comes rushing in. Now the turkey goes in, and from this moment the entire day is organised around it. It has been rubbed and salted and wrestled into the roasting pan, and once the oven door closes, everything else must fit around its schedule. Your mother checks it the way other people check a clock. The whole house slowly fills with its smell, that deep, golden, unmistakable smell that means the holiday is truly underway. For the next several hours that oven is the beating heart of the home, and every other task, the vegetables, the rolls, the table, must bend itself to its timing. Everything now runs on its clock. The bird will need so many hours, and for that single fact the whole shape of the day unfolds backward and forward. If it goes in at this hour, then it comes out at that one, and dinner must be at such a time, and so the potatoes must be started here and the rolls there and the table set by then. Your mother holds all of this in her head at once, a web of timings with the turkey at its centre, and she moves through the morning adjusting it constantly, a conductor keeping every part in tempo. She opens the oven only when she must, because every opening lets the heat escape. But when she does, the smell that rolls out is enormous. It fills the kitchen, and then the hall, and then, gradually, the whole house, reaching up the stairs and under the doors, and one by one the family wakes to it. There is no better alarm clock in the world than that smell. It pulls people from their beds and down the stairs, drawn to the kitchen the way cold hands are drawn to a fire. She bastes it, spooning the hot juices back over the top so the skin will brown and shine, and each time she does the smell deepens. The colour changes hour by hour from pale to gold to a deep glazed brown, and she watches it the way a gardener watches a thing ripen. She knows without a thermometer, mostly by the colour and the smell and the way the leg moves, though she checks anyway because today of all days must not go wrong. Around this central fact, the rest of the kitchen orbits. The good pots come out. The potatoes are peeled in a great heap, their skins curling into the sink. The vegetables wait in their bowls. The rolls rise under a cloth towel in the warm corner near the stove. Every task has its window, its slot in the day, and every slot is measured against the bird. Nothing can be started too early or it will go cold. Nothing can be started too late or it will not be ready. It is a puzzle solved fresh every year, and the solving of it is a skill no school ever taught. The children drift in and are shooed out. Your father wanders through and is handed a task or sent away. But your mother stays, tethered to that oven, unable to leave the house or even the room for long, checking, basting, adjusting, her whole morning tied to the slow transformation happening behind that door. It is patient work, and it cannot be rushed, and it cannot be left alone, and she does it without complaint because it is simply what the day requires. It is a kind of devotion we have mostly lost, this building of an entire day around one slow, tended thing. So much now is fast, is instant, is ready when we want it. But then the holiday moved at the speed of a roasting bird, and everyone in the house lived by that speed for a day, their hunger and their patience and their gathering all shaped by the hours it took. There was no hurrying it. You could only wait and smell it growing richer, and trust the one who was watching it. And when at last it was done, lifted golden and steaming from the oven to rest on the counter, the whole house seemed to exhale. The heart of the day had held. Everything else could now fall into place around it, and your mother, for one moment, stood back and looked at it and let herself be, quietly, proud. It is mid-morning now, and it is time for the good dishes. They live all year on the highest shelf, or in the cabinet no one is allowed to open, wrapped in tissue and quiet. Today they come down. You are told to be careful, so careful, as the plates with the gold rims are washed by hand, even though they are already clean, because that is simply what is done. The cloth napkins are pressed. The serving bowls that appear only once or twice a year are set out on the counter like guests of honour. There is a particular tenderness in the way a family handles the things it saves for the days that matter most. The good china is a presence in the house all year, even when it is never seen, waiting up there behind glass, a quiet promise of days like this one. It came, most likely, as a wedding gift, or was gathered piece by piece over years, and it carries the weight of that history. These are the plates your mother's marriage began on. These are the cups that only the most important people drink from. To bring them down is to declare, without saying so, that today belongs among the great days of the year. They are lifted with two hands, always. The chair is dragged over so someone can reach the top shelf, and the plates are passed down one at a time, careful, into waiting hands below. The tissue is unwound. Each piece is looked at, checked for the chip that would be a small tragedy, and then washed, though it has sat untouched and clean for a year. Because dust settles even behind glass, and because the washing is part of the ritual, the warm water, the soft cloth, the setting of each plate in the rack to dry. It is slow, and it is unnecessary, and it is exactly right. The gold rims catch the light in a way the everyday dishes never do. There is a pattern around the edge, flowers or a fine gold band, and you know it by heart, though you see it so rarely. Holding one of these plates, you understand that you are holding something that matters, and you carry it to the table with the concentration of someone carrying a full cup up a flight of stairs. The linens come out too, the good tablecloth ironed smooth, the cloth napkins pressed into crisp squares. There will be no paper today. Today is a cloth day, a day of real napkins and real silver. The silver that is also kept apart and must be polished, each fork and spoon rubbed until it shines. The serving pieces appear, the big platter for the bird, the gravy boat, the bowls that are too fine and too fragile for ordinary meals. They line up on the counter, and there is something festive in the very sight of them, these objects that mean, always and only, celebration. There is a lesson buried in all this care, though no one names it. The idea that some things are worth keeping apart, worth protecting, worth the trouble of hauling down and washing and hauling back. That not every day is the same, and the days that are different deserve to be marked with the good things, the fine things, the things you would never waste on a Tuesday. It taught you that celebration required effort, that specialness was made, not found. We've grown more casual since, and there is a freedom in that, a mercy even, in not having to fuss. But something was carried in that fuss, some understanding that a day could be lifted up and set apart by the simple act of using the good plates. When you set that gold-rimmed plate down at each place, you were saying, "Today we are our best selves. Today nothing is too fine for us." And there is a tenderness in that no everyday dish could ever hold. Let's step out of the kitchen for a moment, because the rest of the house is being made ready too. The floors are swept and then swept again. The good towels, the ones with the embroidered edges, are hung in the bathroom where guests will see them. Cushions are turned, ashtrays are set out for the uncles, the front window is cleared so the room looks its best from the street. It is a kind of quiet performance, this making of a home into its finest self, and everyone plays a part in it. Even the children who are told gently but firmly to pick up every single thing they own. The whole house is being dressed for company, the way a person dresses for church. The rooms that guests will see get the most attention, of course, the front room and the hall, and the bathroom off the hall, while the private rooms upstairs are allowed to hold the overflow, the coats that will pile on the bed, the clutter swept out of sight. There is an honesty to this, and also a small forgivable vanity. The house will present its best face and keep its untidy corners to itself just as anyone does. The floors get particular care. They're swept and then gone over again, and the good rug is beaten or at least turned so its worn spot faces the wall. The furniture is dusted, the surface is wiped, the little tables cleared of the everyday clutter of living, and set instead with something nice, a bowl of nuts, a dish of hard candy, an ashtray polished and waiting. The front window, which the neighbours can see, is cleaned until it shines, because the house must look its best not only to those inside it but to the whole street. In the bathroom, the good towels come out, the ones with the embroidered edges or the fancy monograms that no one is ever actually meant to use. They hang there, perfect and untouched, a small fiction of elegance. There is a fresh cake of soap, still with its shape, not the worn sliver of every day. Everything says without a word, "We have made ready for you. We have thought of your comfort. You are welcome here." The children are enlisted whether they like it or not. Pick up your things, they are told, all of them, and put them away where they belong. The toys that live scattered across the floor all year are gathered into their boxes and closets. The shoes are lined up. The clutter of childhood is made for one day to disappear. And the children do it, grumbling, because they too can feel the importance of the day pressing down, the sense that today the house must be different, better, ready. There is a warmth in all this preparing, underneath the work of it. To make a home ready for the people you love is itself an act of love, a way of saying you have been thought of, you have been prepared for, we have made a place for you. Every turned cushion and hung towel and swept floor is a small welcome laid down in advance, waiting for the door to open. It is a kind of hospitality that took time, that could not be ordered or delivered, that had to be done by hand in the hours before the guests arrived. We have faster ways now and busier lives, and the making ready is often lighter than it was. But there is something in that older effort, that scrubbing and arranging and hiding away, that carried real feeling. The house made beautiful for the people coming to it. The home turned for one day into its finest and most welcoming self. And when the last towel was hung and the last floor swept, your mother would stand in the doorway of the front room and look at it, the whole thing gleaming and ready, and feel a quiet satisfaction that all of it, every corner, was set right. Now let's find the children, because for them the morning is mostly waiting. They are dressed early in stiff clothes they have been warned not to ruin, and then they are shooed out from under everyone's feet. The hours before the guests arrive stretch out endlessly for a child, all anticipation and no purpose, hovering at the edge of the kitchen hoping to be handed something to lick clean. There is a particular ache to childhood holidays, the sense that something wonderful is coming but has not come yet, and that you are far too small to make it hurry. The clothes are the first indignity. You're put into the good outfit, the itchy collar, the stiff shoes, the dress that must not be sat on wrong, or the trousers that must not be knelt in, and then you are told, in the same breath, to go play but stay clean. It is an impossible instruction. You stand in the middle of the room in your uncomfortable finery, unsure what a child is even supposed to do when he cannot get dirty and cannot help and cannot make the clock move faster. The kitchen is the centre of everything, and so of course it is exactly where you want to be, and exactly where you are not allowed. You hover at its edge, drawn by the smells, hoping. Sometimes it works. Sometimes your mother, harried but soft-hearted, hands you the beater from the mashed potatoes or the bowl the cranberries were in, and you take it off to a corner and clean it with your finger, and it is glorious. But mostly you're gently turned away, told there is no room, told to go find something to do, told not yet, not yet. Time moves differently for a child on a day like this. The adults are all busy and time flies for them, task to task, but for you it crawls. You look at the clock and it has not moved. You look again and it has barely moved. The guests are coming this afternoon, and the afternoon feels 100 years away. You wander the house looking for something to fill the hours, but everything is off limits. Everything is being cleaned or set out or saved, and you are shooed from room to room like a small restless ghost. You press your face to the front window and watch the street for the first car, though it is far too early. You go over the day in your mind, the cousins who will come, the food, the possibility of dessert. You are hungry, always hungry on this day, because the house is full of the smell of food that is not ready, and will not be ready for hours, and no one will give you so much as a roll, because it would spoil your appetite for the meal you cannot yet have. And yet, underneath the boredom and the itchy collar, there is the anticipation itself, which is its own kind of pleasure. The waiting is agony, but it is a delicious agony, because you know what is coming. You know the house will fill. You know there will be cousins to run with, and a table heavy with food, and, if you are good, something sweet at the end of it. The wait is long precisely because the thing you're waiting for is so wonderful. It is a feeling that fades as you grow, this pure childhood anticipation, and it is worth remembering how sharp it once was. Before you understood the work, before you carried any of the burden yourself, the holiday was simply a marvel arriving in slow motion, and your only job was to survive the waiting. The hours dragged, the collar itched, your stomach growled, and still you would not have traded that morning for anything, because everything good in the world was on its way, and you were small enough to feel it coming with your whole body. There is a sweetness in that ache that the adults, busy in the kitchen, had long since traded away. Let's turn to your father now, whose holiday looks different but is no less a part of it. He is out in the driveway in his good coat, scraping frost from the windshield in case anyone needs a ride, or he is under the hood checking the oil out of habit. Later he will be sent to the store for the one thing that was forgotten, and later still he will stand at the head of the table with the carving knife, performing the one job that is unmistakably his. His work is quieter, more occasional, but he moves through the morning with his own small rituals, the man of a house preparing to receive it full. His domain is different from your mother's. Where she rules the kitchen, he governs the edges, the driveway, the yard, the garage, the porch that must be swept, the walk that must be cleared if there has been snow. He's out in the cold most of the morning, doing the outside work, and there is a rhythm to it that suits him. The slow, familiar tasks of a man tending the parts of the home that face the weather. He checks the car. He brings in more wood if there is a fire to keep. He looks over the driveway and imagines where everyone will park. He is not idle, but his work has gaps in it that hers does not, and in those gaps he stands with his hands in his coat pockets and surveys the morning. He is not needed in the kitchen and knows better than to get in the way there, and so he finds himself with these odd pockets of waiting that your mother never gets. He might smoke a cigarette on the back step. He might tinker with something in the garage that does not really need tinkering. He is filling time, in his own way, until the moments come that are truly his. And they do come. There is always the forgotten thing, the item that was not on the list or was on the list and got missed. And when it is discovered, in a small kitchen panic, it is your father who is sent out for it. He puts on his coat again and takes the keys and drives to the one store that is still open, and he is glad to go, because it is a clear task with a clear purpose, and it gets him out into the quiet cold for a while. He comes back with the cranberry sauce or the extra butter, or the pack of cigarettes for the uncles, and he has done his part. But the moment that is most his, the one everyone will watch, comes later, at the table. When the bird is done and rested and carried out on its platter, it is set before him, and he stands. He takes up the carving knife and the long fork, and he sharpens the knife with a few practice strokes, and then, with everyone watching, he carves. It is a performance, and he knows it. He does it with a certain ceremony, laying the slices out neat, serving the choice pieces to the guests of honour, and in this one act he is unmistakably the head of the house, the provider, the man at the top of the table. It is a division of the day that we have mostly moved past, this clean split between the mother's work and the father's, and there was unfairness in it, certainly, in how much fell to her and how little to him. But there was also a kind of order that people understood, roles that each person knew and stepped into. His part was smaller in hours but no less real in meaning. The outside work, the errand, the carving, the standing at the head of the table when the day came full. And there was tenderness in it too in his way. He was not in the kitchen, but he felt the weight of the day the way she did, in his own quieter fashion. He wanted it to go well. He wanted the guests welcomed and the car ready and the bird carved just right. And when he stood at the head of that full table, knife in hand, surrounded by everyone he loved, he felt, in his own words or without them, that this was what all the work had been for, and now the moment everything has been building toward. It is early afternoon, and the first car pulls into the drive. The doorbell rings, or a fist knocks against the storm door, and suddenly the quiet house fills all at once with cold air and loud voices, and the smell of someone's perfume mixing with the roasting bird. Coats pile up on the bed in the spare room. Grandmothers are helped out of the cold. Children who have not seen each other since summer stand shyly for a moment before tearing off down the hall. In the space of a single opened door, the whole long, careful morning finally becomes the day it was always meant to be. The change is instant and total. One moment the house is calm and ordered, everything in its place, the family moving quietly through their tasks. The next moment the door opens and the world rushes in, all noise and motion and cold air off the coats, and the house is transformed. The quiet that reigned since before dawn is gone in a heartbeat, replaced by voices calling greetings, by laughter, by the general glad commotion of people arriving all at once. There is a great deal of business at the door. The guests come in stamping their feet, bringing the cold in with them, their cheeks red from the drive. There are embraces in the doorway, coats to be taken, the question of where to put everything. The coats go to the bed in the spare room, growing into a mountain there as more arrive. The dishes that people have brought are carried through to the kitchen, the pie, the side dish, the jar of pickles, handed over with the little apologies and explanations that always accompany brought food. The grandmothers get special care. They are helped up the steps and out of their heavy coats, settled into the best chair, brought something warm to drink. They preside from their corner, glad to be surrounded, watching the family swirl around them, and the children, who have waited all morning for exactly this, meet again after a long absence, and stand for one shy beat, suddenly uncertain, before the ice breaks and they go pounding off down the hall together, the whole pack of them, released at last from their long boredom. The smells mix now in a way they did not before. The deep smell of the roasting bird which has filled the house all morning is joined suddenly by perfume and aftershave, by the cold outdoor smell clinging to the coats, by cigarette smoke as the uncles light up, by the pies that guests have carried in. It is the smell of the whole family gathered, of many lives briefly overlapping in one warm space, and it is a smell that means, unmistakably, holiday. Your mother, who has been alone with this day since before dawn, is suddenly surrounded, pulled in a dozen directions, greeting and hugging and answering, and still somehow keeping half her mind on the kitchen. There is joy in it for her, real joy, the payoff of all those hours, the house full at last of the people she's been working toward, and there is also, underneath, a flicker of the labour still ahead, because a full house is a hungry house, and the meal must still be finished and served. But for this moment she lets herself simply be glad. It is a kind of gathering that is harder to arrange now, when families scatter so far and gather so seldom, when a holiday might be a phone call or a quick visit rather than a whole house filled to its walls. But then, this was the heart of it, this arrival, this sudden filling of a home with everyone it loved. All the weeks of leaning toward the day, all the shopping and cooking and cleaning and waiting, all of it was for this. The door opening, the cold air rushing in, and the house coming alive all at once with voices and warmth and the whole family at last under one roof. And standing in the middle of it, in the noise and the crush and the good smell of everything, you understood that the day had truly begun. It is the hour between arrival and dinner now, and the relish tray appears to hold everyone over. It is set out in the front room where the guests have gathered, a divided dish of celery sticks and green olives, and little sweet pickles and radishes cut into roses, and it is the only thing anyone is allowed to eat before the meal. People pick at it politely, standing in their good clothes with drinks in their hands, and it does almost nothing to quiet the hunger that the whole house has been building all morning. But it is something to gather around, something to do with your hands, and so it holds the room together while the kitchen finishes its work. The waiting has a particular quality now, different from the children's morning boredom. This is grown-up waiting, filled with talk. The relatives who have not seen each other since summer catch up in the front room, the news of the year exchanged over the divided dish, who has married and who has moved, and how the crops or the job or the health have been. The voices rise and overlap, warm and glad, and under them runs the low anticipation of the meal to come, the knowledge that the best is still ahead. The smell from the kitchen is torment by now. It has been building for hours, and it is at its richest, the bird nearly done, the sides coming together, and it drifts into the front room and makes everyone's stomach turn over. Someone reaches for another celery stick, more for the doing of it than the eating. The children, if they dare, edge in and are given an olive and sent away again. Everyone is hungry, pleasantly, achingly hungry, held in that sweet suspense between the smell of the feast and the feast itself. There is a whole social art to this hour, the standing and talking and picking at the tray, the drinks refilled, the cigarettes lit. The uncles gather in one corner and the aunts in another. Someone is drawn out to tell a story everyone has heard before, and everyone laughs anyway, because the telling is the point. The grandmother holds court from her chair, and through it all your mother passes in and out, wiping her hands on her apron, joining a conversation for a moment before the kitchen pulls her back, unable quite to rest even now. The relish tray itself is a small marvel, a thing that appears only on days like this. Those little pickles, those olives, those radish roses that someone took the trouble to carve, they signal that this is an occasion, that even the waiting has been made special. No one would set out such a thing on an ordinary evening. It is another of the day's fine touches, another way the family says to itself that today is not like other days. It is a rhythm of gathering we have mostly lost, this long, slow hour of standing and talking before a meal, when no one was in a hurry and the waiting itself was part of the pleasure. We eat faster now and gather looser, and the appetizer is often the whole visit. But then the waiting stretched out warm and unhurried, filled with the voices of people who loved each other and saw each other too seldom, and the little dish of pickles was enough because the company was the true feast, and the meal, when it came, would only be the proof of it. And so the hour passed, and the hunger built, and the house held its breath one last time before the call to the table came. Let's go back into the kitchen now, at the very peak of its labour, because this is where the real drama of the day is happening. The bird is out and resting, and everything must come together at once. The potatoes mashed and the gravy made, and the vegetables finished and the rolls warmed, all of it timed to be hot on the table at the same moment. And your mother is not alone any more. The aunts and the older cousins have shed their coats and rolled up their sleeves and come to help, and the kitchen is full of women moving in a kind of practiced dance, each one knowing without being told what needs doing next. It is crowded and hot and loud in the best way. The window over the sink has fogged completely. Steam rises from every pot. There is barely room to turn around, and yet no one collides, because there is an order to it that these women understand in their bones. One mashes the potatoes with a hand masher, her whole arm working. One stands over the gravy, whisking, watching for lumps. One drains the beans, one butters the rolls, one carries the good bowls to the table and comes back for more. They talk as they work, The kitchen talk of women who have done this together many times, and the talk is half instruction and half gossip and wholly warm. The gravy is the moment of highest tension. It is made in the roasting pan itself, over the burner, the drippings loosened and the flour worked in, and the liquid added slowly, and it can go wrong in a dozen ways, and everyone knows it. The woman making it bends close, whisking hard, and the others give her room, and a certain respectful quiet, because gravy is a serious business and not everyone can do it well. When it comes together smooth and rich and just thick enough, there is a small triumph in the room, unspoken but felt. This is women's work, and it is a smith, and it is largely invisible in the story the day tells about itself. The men in the front room will sit down to a hot and perfect meal and never quite know the choreography that put it there, the split-second timing, the years of practice, the heat and the crowding, and the sheer coordinated effort of it. But the women know. They have always known. And there is a pride in it, and a kind of fellowship. The fellowship of people doing hard work together and doing it well. The younger girls are pulled in too, given the safe jobs, told to carry this or stir that. And in the doing of it they are learning, though no one calls it teaching. They watch their mothers and aunts and grandmothers. They see how the gravy is made and how the timing is held, and they are taking it in, the way it has always been taken in, hand to hand across the generations. One day this kitchen will be theirs, and they will move through it the same way, and they are being made ready now without a single lesson ever being named. It is a kind of togetherness that has grown rarer. This many hands in one kitchen, this shared labour of women who see each other seldom and fall instantly back into rhythm. So much cooking now is solitary, one person alone with the recipes and the timer. But then the kitchen was full, and the work was shared, and the crowding and the heat and the noise of it were themselves a kind of joy. The meal was made by many hands, and when it was finally carried out hot and whole, it carried all of them in it. Now let's look in on the men who have gathered in the front room while the kitchen roars behind its door. They sit in the good chairs and on the sofa, the fathers and uncles and grandfathers, and they have their drinks and their cigarettes and their easy talk, and they are for this hour entirely at their leisure. The television may be on in the corner, or the radio, carrying a game that half of them are watching and half are only using as a backdrop. The air is blue with smoke. The talk moves slow and comfortable. The talk of men who work hard most days and are glad of a day to sit. They talk of the things men talked of then. The work, the price of things, the car and how it is running, the state of the world as the newspapers told it to them. They talk of the game, if there is a game, taking sides, groaning and cheering. An uncle tells the story he always tells, and the others let him, and someone adds the detail he always forgets. There is teasing, the rough, affectionate teasing of brothers and brothers-in-law, old jokes worn smooth with use. It is unhurried, undemanding company, and it asks nothing of them but that they sit and be together. The grandfather is given the best chair, and he holds forth or he dozes as he pleases. The younger men defer to the older ones, listen to the same advice they have heard before, nod at the stories. There is a hierarchy here, gentle and understood, the generations arranged in the room the way they are arranged in life. And the boys, the sons and nephews, hover at the edges of it, listening, beginning to understand that one day this will be their circle, these will be their chairs. There is, it must be said, an ease to the men's afternoon that the women in the kitchen are not given. The men sit while the women work, and this is simply how it was, the division so complete that no one questioned it. The men would say, if asked, that they had done their part, the week of work that paid for it all, and there is truth in that. But the plain fact of the day was that one room laboured and one room rested, and the resting room was full of men. And yet there is warmth in it too, in this gathering of men who might not, in their ordinary lives, sit still together at all. They are not men who talk easily of what they feel. But here, in the smoke and the low talk and the shared watching of the game, something passes between them that is close to tenderness, the closeness of family, the comfort of being among your own. They would never name it, but they feel it, and they come back for it, year after year. It is a scene that has softened at the edges since, as the old sharp division of the sexes has loosened and the kitchen and the front room have grown more mixed, and that is a good thing, a fairer thing. But there was, in that older arrangement, a certain vanished comfort, the men in their room and the women in theirs, each in the company of their own, each keeping a tradition older than any of them could remember. The men sat and talked and smoked and waited, and when the call came from the kitchen at last, they rose and stubbed out their cigarettes and went in to take their places at the table, and then it comes, the call everyone has been waiting for. Dinner is ready, someone announces from the kitchen door, and the whole house shifts at once toward the dining room. The men rise from their chairs, the children come running from wherever they have scattered. The women carry out the last hot dishes, and there is a general glad migration toward the table, everyone converging on the one room that has been made ready for this single moment. The table stands loaded and steaming, the good china gleaming, and now comes the small happy chaos of everyone finding a place. The seating is not random, though it may look it. There is an order, understood if unspoken, the grandfather here and the grandmother there, the father at the head where he will carve, the honoured guests near the top, the children banished to their own table at the side or in the next room entirely. People find their spots with a certain amount of negotiation. You sit here, no you sit by me, move down one, and there is laughter in the sorting of it. The pleasant confusion of fitting a whole family around one table. The table itself is a sight to stop a person. It has been stretched to its full length with the leaf that came down from the attic, covered in the good cloth, set with the gold-rimmed plates and the polished silver, and the cloth napkins folded just so. Down its centre runs the food, more of it than seems possible, the great bird at the head, and around it the bowls and platters of everything, the potatoes and the gravy and the vegetables and the rolls, the cranberry glowing red, all of it hot and steaming and waiting. It is abundance made visible, a whole family's worth of plenty laid out in one long dazzling row. There is a jostling and a scraping of chairs as everyone settles. The children complain about the children's table and are told to hush. Someone is missing a chair and one is fetched from the kitchen. Napkins are unfolded and laid across laps. Water glasses are filled. And slowly the chaos resolves into order. The whole family seated at last, ringed around the loaded table, every face lit by the good light of the dining room, every eye on the feast before them. There is a hush that falls in the moment just before the meal begins, a gathering of breath. Everyone is seated, everyone is hungry, the food is at its peak, and for one suspended moment the whole family simply sits there together, arranged around the abundance, taking it in, before the grace is said and the passing begins. It is one of the fullest moments of the year, this pause at the laden table, the family whole and gathered and about to share the thing that has been all day in the making. We rush this part now, or skip it, eating in shifts or in front of screens or standing at the counter. But then the whole family sat down together at one table, all at once, everyone in their place, and there was a weight and a wonder to that gathering that we have mostly let slip away. To see every face you loved arranged around one table, lit warm, waiting together for the meal to begin, was to see your whole world assembled in one room. And in the hush before the first plate was passed, you felt, without knowing you felt it, that this was as complete as life ever got. Now the meal begins, and it begins with a bowing of heads. Someone says the grace, the father or the grandfather or whoever the family looks to, and the whole table goes quiet and still, hands folded, eyes closed, the steam rising off the food while the words are said. It is brief, usually, a few plain sentences of thanks for the food and the family and the year that has passed. But it lands in the middle of all that abundance with a real weight, a moment of gathered gratitude before the eating, and even the children hold still for it. Then the AN and the table comes back to life. The father takes up the carving knife and fork and stands, and all eyes turn to him and the bird. He carves with ceremony, the slices laid out neat on the platter, the white meat and the dark, and the plates begin to come to him to be served. The honoured guests first, the grandmother, the grandfather. There is an art to his carving, and he knows it is being watched, and he does it well, or well enough, and the served plates start back down the table. And now the great passing begins, the bowls and platters going hand to hand around the table in a constant circulation. The potatoes go one way, and the gravy chases them. The vegetables make their round. The rolls travel in their basket. Take some and pass it on, take some and pass it on, everyone serving themselves from the moving feast, the plates filling higher and higher. Would you pass the, and here you are, and just a little for me, the whole table murmuring with the small polite traffic of the meal. The plates grow heavy with it, mounded high, more than anyone should eat and exactly what everyone will. The gravy is ladled over everything. The cranberry is spooned out, that one bright, sharp note against all the richness. Second helpings are pressed on people before they have finished the first. Eat, you're told, eat, there is plenty, and there is always plenty, that being the whole point, the abundance so complete that no one could possibly go wanting. There is a warmth in this passing that goes beyond the food itself. To serve one another around a table, to hand the bowl to the next person and take from what they hand you, is a small ongoing act of care, repeated 100 times through the meal. The family feeds itself in a circle, each depending on the next, the dishes never still, the whole table joined in the simple mutual work of the meal. It is community made edible, love ladled out and passed along. We have grown more separate in our eating since, more likely to fix our own plate and sit apart, the communal passing given way to the individual serving, and something is lost in that, some of the togetherness that lived in the handing round of bowls. But then the table moved as one, every dish in motion, every person both served and serving, and the meal was not a thing you ate alone, but a thing the whole family did together, hand to hand, plate to plate, around and around the crowded and abundant table, until every plate was full and the eating could truly begin. And now, at last, the eating. After all the weeks of leaning toward the day, all the shopping and cooking and waiting, after the grace and the carving and the long passing of the dishes, the family finally bows to its plates and eats. And for a while the talk falls away, because the food is too good and the hunger too real, and the table goes quiet but for the small sounds of the meal, the clink of silver on the good china, the low murmur of someone asking for the salt, the contented near silence of many people eating well together. The food is everything the morning promised. The turkey is tender and rich, the gravy smooth and savoury, the potatoes soft under their pool of it. The stuffing carries the taste of sage and butter, and the bird it cooked inside. The rolls are warm enough to melt what you spread on them. The cranberry cuts through it all, bright and tart. Each bite is a small fulfilment, the payoff of every hour that went into it, and you eat slowly, wanting it to last, wanting to taste all of it before the meal is gone. The talk comes back gradually between mouthfuls, softer now and more content. The sharp edges of the earlier conversation have gone. People are too full and too pleased to argue about anything. Compliments go to the cook. This is wonderful. You have outdone yourself. And your mother waves them off but flushes with the pleasure of it, because this is her hour. This is what all the work was for. The family bent happily over the food she made. The praise is the only wage she gets, and she takes it quietly glad. Plates are cleaned and filled again. The father is pressed to carve more and does. Someone declares they cannot eat another bite, and then does exactly that. The children at their table are eating too, more or less, though they are mostly waiting for what comes after. The grandmother eats slowly, savouring, remarking on how good it all is, remembering meals like it from her own long life, and the whole table, for this stretch of time, is simply wholly content, wrapped in the warmth and the plenty and the good work of the meal. There is a fullness that comes at the far end of a meal like this that is more than the fullness of the stomach. It is a fullness of the spirit, the deep satisfaction of a family gathered and fed, of abundance shared, of everyone you love in one warm room with more than enough before them. You sit in it, heavy and happy, your plate finally slowing, and you feel, without needing to say it, that this is what all the labour and the travel and the waiting were for. This exact moment, this full and quiet table. It is a satisfaction that our faster, lighter meals rarely reach. This deep, contented fullness at the end of a feast made slowly by hand and shared by a whole family at once. We eat well enough now, and often, but we less often arrive at that particular peace, the peace of the great meal fully eaten among all your people. But then, at the far end of the loaded table, in the quiet of everyone's satisfaction, you touched it. The year had built to this, and for one full and golden hour, everyone you loved was fed and gathered and glad, and nothing at all was missing. Let's turn now to the children's table, that small separate kingdom set up at the edge of the grown-up feast. It is the card table, most likely, or a smaller table dragged in from somewhere, set with the everyday dishes rather than the good china, and the children are sent to it with a mix of complaint and secret relief. They wanted to sit with the adults at the real table, and being sent here feels like a demotion. But there is a freedom at the children's table that the grown-up table does not have, and they discover it quickly, and by the end they would not trade their small table for anything. At the children's table there are no manners to speak of, or fewer of them anyway, out of the direct line of a mother's eye. The cousins are here, the ones seen only on days like this, and the strangeness of the morning's reunion has long since worn off into easy conspiracy. They eat what they like and leave what they do not, the vegetables pushed quietly to the very edges of the plate, the rolls hoarded, the whole table given over to the important business of being children together, away from the watchful adults who are lost now in their own slow talk across the room. There is talk here too, but it is child's talk, wild and looping, spilling from one subject to the next with no thread anyone could follow. They talk of school and toys and the vast serious matters of young life, of who is fastest and who has the better bicycle, and what they each want for Christmas, which is not far off now. Someone tells a joke, the same joke that has been going around all season, and they all laugh too loud at it and are shushed from the big table with a look. Someone starts a game with the food, a pea balanced on a spoon, and it is quickly stopped by an aunt with eyes in the back of her head. There is a jockeying for position that never quite ends, the older cousins lording their extra years over the younger, the youngest ones fussing and straining to keep up, to be included, to matter. It is its own small society, complete and self-governing, running by its own rules right there beside the grown-up world and yet entirely apart from it. There is a pecking order the adults never see, alliances formed and broken over the course of a single meal, secrets traded in whispers, dares issued under the table. The oldest child at the table rules it more or less by the simple authority of age, deciding what is funny and what is not, which games will be played, who is in and who is out. And the little ones watch and learn and wait for their own turn at the top, which will come, as it always comes, with time. They can see the adults from where they sit, the long table with its glittering china and its polished silver and its slower, quieter, more mysterious talk, and they watch it out of the corners of their eyes with a mixture of longing and relief both. Some day they will be there, at the real table, with the good plates and the grown-up conversation and the right to sit up straight among the adults. But not yet, for now they have their own small table, their own small world, and there is a sweetness in it that they will not fully understand until it is long behind them, gone the way of all childhood things, and the food comes to them too, of course, plates made up by a mother or an aunt and carried carefully over everything the adults are having, only cut smaller, and served with a firm reminder to eat their vegetables before there is any talk of pie. They are part of the feast, fully, wholly, even here at their little table in the corner. They are not left out or forgotten. They are simply given their own particular corner of the great day, a corner sized and shaped just for them, where they can be exactly and entirely what they are, children among children, cousins among cousins, on the very best day of the whole long year. And there are alliances made at this table that will outlast the day itself. Cousins who see each other only at holidays find, over these shared small tables, that they are friends, real friends, bound by blood and by these repeated afternoons of conspiracy. The bonds formed over pushed-aside vegetables and whispered jokes will carry forward, year to year, table to table, until one day these same children sit together at the grown-up table and remember, laughing, the little kingdom they once ruled in the corner. It is a thing that has faded as families have grown smaller and gatherings more sparse, this separate table crowded with cousins, this little republic of children at the edge of the feast. Many children now eat right alongside the adults, folded into the one table, and there is nothing wrong in that, nothing at all. But there was a particular magic in the children's table that is worth remembering, a freedom and a fellowship all its own, the cousins together and the grown-ups at a happy, watchful distance. And years later, grown at last and seated finally at the big table yourself, with the good china before you and the slow adult talk flowing around you, you would glance over at the children's table with its wild laughter and its pushed-aside vegetables and its small, fierce dramas, and you would feel a sudden unexpected ache, sharp and sweet, for the little kingdom you had left behind and could never, ever go back to. Now comes the lull, that deep, heavy quiet that settles over the house when the great meal is finally done. Everyone has eaten far too much, and everyone knows it, and there is nothing to do now but sink into the fullness of it. The men loosen their belts and drift back to the front room and their chairs, heavier than before, slower, some of them frankly dozing. The women, though their work is not done, pause for a moment in it. The children, briefly stunned by all that food, go quiet. The whole house seems to sink down into a warm, drowsy hush. It is the most peaceful hour of the entire day, this one. The tension of the timing is past, all of it. The meal safely delivered and eaten and praised to the skies. The great effort has been made and it has succeeded. And now the family simply exists together in the warm aftermath of it, too full to move much, and too content to want to. The talk that continues is slow and murmuring and drifting, sentences trailing off unfinished because no one has the energy or the need to finish them. Someone in the front room has fallen genuinely asleep in his chair, his head tipped back, his mouth fallen open, and no one wakes him. Because everyone in the house understands completely the deep and irresistible pull of it. The light has begun to change outside, the short autumn afternoon already leaning toward its early evening, and it comes in gold and low and slanting through the windows, and lays itself gently across the drowsy rooms and the drowsy people in them. The smell of the great meal still hangs in the air, softer now, no longer sharp with cooking but mellowed into something warmer, mixed with the smell of coffee and cigarette smoke and the sweetness of the pies waiting still uncut. A clock ticks somewhere down the hall, suddenly audible in the quiet. The house, which roared all day with work and voices and the clatter of the kitchen, has gone still and warm and slow, wrapped snug in the heavy peace that only ever follows a truly great meal shared by everyone you love. Someone suggests a walk, to settle the food, to get a little air, and a few of the heartier souls rouse themselves and put on their coats and step out into the sharp cold of the late afternoon, glad of it, their breath showing white as they go down the walk. The rest stay in, too comfortable, too heavy, too unwilling to break the spell, letting the enormous meal settle right where they sit. The children, who recover their energy first, as children always do, begin after a while to stir and murmur and eye the door and the stairs. But even they feel the general drowsiness pressing down and move more slowly than usual, caught along with everyone else in the warm, still spell of the full and quiet house. There is a particular comfort to the sounds of this hour, or rather to the near absence of them. The house that was so loud is nearly silent now, and the silence is not empty but full of the breathing of people at rest, the small shift of someone settling deeper into a chair, the turn of a newspaper page read by no one in particular, the soft snore from the corner. These are the sounds of a family entirely at ease, and there is nothing else quite like them, nothing so reassuring, nothing so much like safety made audible. There is a tenderness to this hour that is very easy to miss precisely because so little happens in it. Nothing is being accomplished. No one is doing anything of any note at all. The family is simply together, sated and slow and heavy, sharing the same warm, drowsy air, and no one is in the least hurry to be anywhere else in the world. And that, it turns out, is much of what the whole long day was truly for, not merely the meal itself, but this, the being together in its aftermath, the shared and wordless contentment of a family that has eaten well and finds it has nowhere on earth it would rather be than exactly here. The one who cannot fully rest, of course, is your mother, and even she takes a moment. She sits at the edge of the gathering with a cup of coffee, her feet aching, watching her family drowse in the gold light, and lets herself feel, just for a while, the deep, quiet pride of it. This is her doing, all of it. This warm, full, peaceful house, and she lets herself sit in the middle of it before the dishes call her back. We have lost some of our patience for this lull, in our busier and more restless and more scheduled lives, quick now to clear away and check a phone and move on to the next thing on the list, reluctant to simply sit and be full and slow together with nothing to show for it. But then the afternoon opened up wide and empty, and the family sank gratefully down into it, unhurried, unbothered, dozing and murmuring in the low gold light while the meal settled and the day eased gently toward its close. And if you were a child in that warm, still house, half drowsing yourself among all the drowsing grown-ups, wrapped in the smell of coffee and the sound of soft snoring and the golden light across the floor, you felt something then that you had no words for and you'd spend the rest of your life trying to find again, a deep and simple and total safety. The whole family gathered, and full and at peace, and the afternoon stretching warm and golden and endless all around you. But the lull is not for everyone, and now we must follow the women back into the kitchen, where a mountain of dishes waits. While the men doze in the front room, the work of the day is not finished, only changed. Every plate and bowl and pot and pan from that enormous meal must now be washed, and there are no machines to do it, only hands and hot water and a dish towel. And so, the women tie their aprons back on and gather at the sink, and the second great labour of the day begins, quieter than the first, but no lighter for that. The kitchen is a genuine wreck, and they survey it from the doorway with the grim good humour of people who have seen it all before and know exactly what lies ahead. Every surface holds something dirty. The counters are crowded with dishes stacked on dishes. The roasting pan sits crusted and enormous on the stove, the worst of it. The pan that will need soaking and scrubbing and soaking again. The good china must be washed by hand and with the very greatest care, because it is the good china and cannot be treated in any rough or hurried way. There is grease congealing and gravy drying and cranberry gone sticky, pots to be scoured, glasses to be wiped clear, the whole vast aftermath of the feast to be worked through piece by patient piece, and it will take a long, long time. But they do it together, all of them, and that changes everything about it. One washes, plunging her hands into the hot soapy water, and one dries with the good towel, and one puts away, reaching up to the high shelves and into the deep cupboards, and the quiet assembly line of it moves along steadily. The clean dishes stacking up on one side as the dirty ones go down on the other. They talk as they work, the same warm private kitchen talk as before, the talk that no man in the front room ever hears, and the heavy labour becomes almost pleasant in the doing of it together, the shared grumbling, the passing back and forth of the towel, the small real satisfaction of order slowly returning to the ruined and cluttered room. The window over the sink fogs up again, white with the steam of the hot water, closing the kitchen off into its own warm private world. They fall into a rhythm that needs no discussing. Each woman knows her place in the line, knows the pace, knows without asking where each pot lives and which drawer holds the good silver. It is a choreography learned over many years and many holidays, and it runs now almost by itself, hands moving, dishes flowing, the pile shrinking steadily under their combined and practised effort. And under the work runs the talk, lower and franker than any talk at the table, the real news of the family passed woman to woman over the soapy water, the worries and the tendernesses that only get spoken here, at the sink, out of the men's hearing. There is an injustice in it. plain to see now, if it was not always plainly seen then, that the women's day held two great labours, while the men's held one long and comfortable rest. The men sat full and drowsing in their chairs, while the women stood again on aching feet at the sink, hands deep in the cooling, greasy water, working their slow way through the wreckage of the very meal they had also risen before dawn to make. This was simply how it was, the arrangement of the world as everyone then understood it, and most did not think to question it. But that does not make it fair, and it is worth naming honestly and plainly, even in a story told with all the love in the world. And yet, even here, even in this, there was something the women had that the men in their drowsing room did not. They had each other, and the close warm company of shared work, and the private candid kitchen talk that never travelled past the fogged-up window. The mountain of dishes was a real burden, heavy and long, but it was a shared burden, and in the sharing of it the women found a fellowship and an honesty and a warmth that was theirs and theirs alone, that the men, for all their rest, never knew and never would. The sink was hard on the hands and the feet and the back, but the company gathered around the sink was the best company in the house. It is a scene that has changed, thankfully, for the better since, as the labour of the after-meal has slowly come to be more evenly shared among everyone, and no one now, looking back clearly, would truly wish the old arrangement back whole and unchanged. But it is worth remembering the women at that sink all the same, aprons tied on again while the rest of the house slept off its dinner, working steadily through the great mountain with their sleeves pushed up past the elbow, and their talk running low and warm and honest beneath the running water. They finished the day the same way they had begun it, before the sun, with their hands in the work. And when at last the very final dish was dried and put away, and the kitchen stood clean and gleaming and whole again, ready for morning, there was a weary and unmistakable pride in it among them. The true labour of the day done thoroughly, done well, and done together, hand beside hand, the way it always had been. Now the family gathers once more at the table, because no holiday is truly complete until the pies come out. The dishes are done, or done enough for now, and the drowsy men are roused at last from their chairs, because word has gone round that dessert is finally ready, and there is no fullness so complete, no drowsiness so deep, that it cannot somehow find a little room for pie. The good coffee is brewing, its rich, dark smell filling the whole downstairs, and the pies that have waited so patiently on the windowsill since the night before are brought out at last in triumph, and the family reassembles, yawning and stretching and glad, around the table for the sweet, slow close of the great meal. There they are, the pies, golden and glorious and worth every hour of the waiting, the pumpkin and the apple and the mince, their crusts pinched by hand into little waves, their tops baked to just the right deep gold. They are cut into generous slices, the knife sinking through the crust with a sound that makes everyone lean in, and served out onto the good dessert plates, a soft spoonful of real whipped cream set beside each one, and then the plates are passed around the table the same way everything has been passed all day long, hand to hand around the circle. The coffee is poured into the good cups, strong and dark and steaming, and the grown-ups wrap their hands gratefully around the warmth of it, and the whole table settles down into the comfortable, contented business of dessert. And somehow, against all reason, there is room. However full everyone loudly claimed to be an hour ago, however tightly the belts were loosened, room is found, because this is pie, and this is the sweet promised reward at the very end of the long and labouring day, and no one on earth would dream of passing it by. The pumpkin is smooth and dark and deeply spiced, cool and dense on the tongue. The apple is warm still and tart beneath its flaky, buttery crust, the fruit gone soft and fragrant. The mince is rich and strange and old-fashioned, the taste of holidays reaching back further than anyone at the table can remember. And the whipped cream is real, beaten by hand that very morning, nothing at all like the stuff from a can. Each single bite is a small, perfect ending, and the family lingers over it now in no hurry whatsoever, the last pressure of the day fully and finally behind them. The talk over dessert is the softest and the warmest of the entire day. The urgency is completely gone from it now. The great meal is done and praised, the dishes are washed and put away, and there is nothing left in all the world to do but sit together over pie and hot coffee in the low gold light of the late afternoon, and talk and laugh quietly, and let the whole good day wind slowly and sweetly down toward its end. The children come drifting back for their pie, revived by the promise of sugar, and are given their slices at last, and even they slow down over it, sensing somehow that the day is drawing gently toward its close and wanting, without knowing they want it, to make it last. There is a completeness to this moment that the whole long day has quietly been building toward, more even, perhaps, than the great meal itself. The meal was the peak of the labour, the summit of all that cooking and timing and effort. But this, the pie and the coffee and the easy unhurried talk in the fading light, this is the peak of the piece. The family sits together, fed and content and entirely at ease, over the last sweet course of the day, and lets itself simply enjoy the being together, which was the true point and purpose of all of it from the very beginning, from the very first list scratched on the back of an envelope weeks and weeks ago in the early dark of a November evening. The grandmother lingers longest over her coffee in no hurry at all, savouring the warmth of the cup and the warmth of the gathering both. She has seen so many of these afternoons, so many pies and pots of coffee and tables full of family, stretching back across a whole long life, and she knows better than anyone at the table how rare and how precious this ordinary hour truly is. She says little, but she watches everything. The faces of her children and her children's children lit gold in the fading light, and she holds it quietly, the way you hold a thing you know you cannot keep. We keep dessert, of course. We have not lost that, not any of it. But we have too often lost the lingering, the slow, sweet, unhurried hour over coffee and pie, that we're now too busy, or too scattered, or too tired to sit all the way through anymore. But then the family stayed on at the table long after the plates were clean and scraped, over the last of the pie and the good strong coffee, in the deepening gold light of the fading day, wanting nothing more, needing to be nowhere else at all, simply together at the sweet warm close of the greatest meal of the year. And in that lingering, that unwillingness to rise and end it, was the whole entire heart of the holiday, the very thing all the long labour had been for, the family gathered and glad and full and in no hurry in all the world to let the good day go. Let's ease into the late afternoon now, that long slow stretch when the meal is well behind everyone, and no one is quite ready to leave. The light has gone gold and low, slanting through the front windows, and the family has scattered into comfortable groups through the house, the men in their chairs, the women finally sitting down, the children playing on the floor. There is nowhere anyone has to be. The great work of the day is done, and what remains is the sweetest thing of all, the simple, unhurried company of family, stretched out across an afternoon that seems in no hurry to end. This is the reward, though no one names it so. All the weeks of leaning toward the day, all the labour of the morning, all the tension of the meal, and here at the end of it comes this easy gold hour, when there is nothing left to do but be together. The urgency has drained out of the house. The clock, which ruled the whole morning, no longer matters. People sit where they land and stay there, and the talk drifts along without aim or hurry, the way talk only does when everyone is full and content and going nowhere at all. The stories come out now, the good ones, the ones that only get told when the family is gathered and relaxed. The grandmother remembers a holiday from her own girlhood, decades gone, and the room quiets to listen. She speaks of a farmhouse kitchen and a wood stove, and a mother of her own long since passed, and for a moment the whole room can almost see it. That older holiday folded inside this one like a picture inside a picture. An uncle tells the tale everyone knows and loves, the one about the year the dog got the ham, and it is better for being familiar, and the laughter comes right where it always comes. The old family jokes surface. The old family arguments, worn soft with the years, are had again without any heat in them. More ceremony now than quarrel. The children have found their second wind and play on the floor among the grown-ups' feet, building something out of whatever is at hand, or squabbling gently over nothing, or simply lying on their backs in the gold light, listening without seeming to listen to the adult talk washing over them. They are soaking it in, the warmth of it, the sense of belonging to this crowd of people who share a name and a history and a table. Though they could not say so, these long old afternoons are laying down something in them that will last their whole lives, some deep foundation of belonging that they will carry into every room they ever enter. The house itself seems to settle into the hour. The smell of the meal has softened and mixed now with coffee and cigarette smoke, and the faint sweetness of the pies still lingering. Someone gets up to put another pot of coffee on, and the sound of it perking is a small comfortable music under the talk. The dish of hard candy makes another round. A man reaches for the newspaper and then lets it lie, too content to read. A woman kicks off her shoes at last, tucks her stockinged feet up under her in the chair, and lets out a long breath she's been holding since dawn. There is a texture to the light that everyone feels without remarking on it, the particular gold of a late autumn afternoon coming in low through the front windows, laying long, warm bars across the floor and up the walls. It is the kind of light that makes ordinary things look precious. The worn arm of the sofa, the pattern of the rug, the faces of the people you love gone soft and golden in the glow of it. The day is beginning, just barely, to lean toward its end, and the light knows it, and there is a sweetness in the light that is almost like the first faint note of missing something you have not yet lost. No one moves toward their coat, though the light is fading and the drive home waits for everyone. There is reluctance in the room, an unspoken agreement to hold the day open a little longer, to not be the first to break the spell by rising to go. Everyone knows the afternoon must end, and everyone quietly is putting off its ending. To stand up would be to start the leaving, and no one wants to start the leaving, and so they sit and talk and let the gold light move slowly down the wall. It is a kind of lingering we have grown too busy for, this long, aimless golden stretch of simply being together, no plan, no schedule, no next thing pulling anyone away. We visit shorter now, and leave sooner. Always something waiting on a screen or a calendar, always somewhere else we're half meaning to be. But then the afternoon opened wide and the family filled it with nothing but its own company, the stories and the laughter and the comfortable silences, the gold light moving slowly across the floor as the day eased down toward evening. And if you were there, full and warm among all your people, you understood without a single word that this unhurried gold hour that no one wanted to end, was the very thing the whole long day had been building toward all along. It is getting on toward evening now, and talk turns to the leftovers, because in a house this full of food no one leaves empty-handed. Your mother is in the kitchen again, this time with a different purpose, wrapping up plates of turkey and stuffing and a wedge of pie for everyone to take home. There is a whole ceremony to it, the pressing of food on the departing guests. You must take some of this, the insisting and the accepting, and it is one of the truest expressions of love the day contains, this sending of everyone home with a share of the plenty. She works at the counter with wax paper and foil, building the little parcels, and she knows exactly what each family should have. A good portion of turkey for this one, because they have a house full of growing boys who will go through it in a day. A whole extra pie for that one, because they admired it so, and because she made an extra on purpose knowing they would. She adds a scoop of stuffing here, a spoon of cranberry there, folding and tucking and wrapping, her hands moving with the same care they moved with all day long. The abundance that filled the table is now being divided up and parcelled out, so that the plenty follows everyone home into the ordinary week ahead. There is a resistance to be overcome always, part of the ritual as much as the wrapping itself. The guests protest that they cannot possibly, that it is far too much, that she should keep it for her own family. And your mother waves this away, as she was always going to, pressing the parcels into their hands, because to send them home with nothing would be unthinkable, a failure of the whole spirit of the day. The protesting and the insisting are a kind of dance, and both sides know their steps by heart, and in the end everyone takes the food, because everyone knew from the very start that they would. She has saved certain things especially. She knows which brother loves the dark meat that others pass over, and she wraps a good piece of it for him without being asked. She knows the neck and the odd bits that her own mother taught her to prize, and those she keeps quietly back. There is a whole intelligence at work in the packing of these plates, a knowledge of every person's likings gathered over years of watching them eat at her table. Nothing is random. Each parcel is made for the hands it will go into, and that is its own kind of love, unspoken, precise, complete. For the food itself carries something more than a meal. To be sent home with a plate is to be sent home with the day, a piece of it to carry into the plain days that follow. Tomorrow, or the day after, when the holiday's over and life has resumed its ordinary shape, there will be a turkey sandwich made from this, cold and simple and somehow better than the meal itself. There will be a slice of this pie after supper some quiet evening, and in that small ordinary moment the whole warm bright day will come flooding back, the full table and the gold light and the voices of everyone gathered. The leftovers are the holiday extended, stretched thin and made to last a few precious days more, and there is love in the giving, plain and deep and old as the family itself. This food was made with enormous labour, hauled home in heavy sacks and worked over for 2 days by tired hands, and to give it away freely, to press it on the people you love and send them off well provisioned into the cold night, is love made solid, love you can hold in your 2 hands and carry out to the car. Take this, your mother is saying with every wrapped plate, though she would never say it aloud. Take this, and think of us. Take this, and be fed a little longer by this day we made together. Take this so that you're not quite so far from us when you're home again in your own kitchen. It is a generosity that has thinned somewhat in our times, when food is cheap and endlessly available, and no one worries much over a plate more or a plate less. We are more likely now to throw the extra away than to press it on a guest, more likely to say help yourself than to stand at the counter wrapping parcels for everyone we love. But then the sending home of leftovers was a real gift, a sharing of hard-won abundance, and it meant something to give it, and something to receive it. And as the guests carried their foil-wrapped parcels out into the cold, dark evening, holding them careful and warm against their coats, they carried a piece of the bright day away with them, a share of the plenty, a portion of the love that had made the whole thing, to be opened and tasted again in a quieter hour when the holiday was days behind them, and the memory of it had only begun to fade. And now, at last, the leaving. It is dark outside, and the guests begin to gather their coats from the mountain on the spare room bed, and the long, slow business of goodbye begins. It always takes longer than it should. The goodbyes at the door, the coats and the packed plates, and the last bits of conversation that spring up just as everyone is trying to go. The cold rushes back in each time the door opens, the same cold that rushed in when they arrived, and one by one the cars pull out of the drive and their taillights fade down the street, until the house that was so full is emptying again. The coats are sorted out from the pile, whose is whose, this one and that one, held up and squinted at in the dim light of the spare room. There is a fumbling in there as everyone finds their own, and the wrong coat is tried and returned with a laugh, and a scarf is found that no one will claim. Children are stuffed back into the outerwear they shed so gladly hours ago, protesting now, their arms gone limp with tiredness, their good clothes rumpled well past any saving. The packed plates are gathered up and held carefully against chests. Hats are found and pulled down over ears. Gloves are hunted for, one always missing, turned up at last under the sofa or in a coat sleeve. It is a small production, the reassembling of a whole crowd for the cold outside, undoing all the comfortable settling in of the long afternoon. And then the goodbyes themselves, which no one seems able to keep short. They begin at the door, and they do not end there. Someone remembers one last thing to say, and it opens a whole new conversation, right there in the cold draught of the open doorway with coats already buttoned and plates already in hand. Have you heard about, and did I tell you, and you must come see us when? And the talk springs up fresh as though the whole long afternoon had not just been given over entirely to talking. The embraces are given, warm and long, the cheeks kissed, the hands shaken and held a moment. The see you soons and the take cares and the drive safe nows are exchanged, and then exchanged again, as if saying them twice might make the parting easier. Each time the door opens, the cold pours in, that sharp, clean night air rushing into the warm, crowded hall, a reminder of the wide, dark world waiting just outside the day's bright bubble. You can see your breath on the porch. The stars are out hard and cold above the dark street. The grandmothers are bundled up to the chin and helped carefully down the steps and settled into the cars with blankets tucked around them. Engines turn over in the dark drive, coughing and then catching, and headlights come on and throw their beams across the frozen lawn. And still the goodbyes trail on through rolled-down windows, one more wave, one more call of thanks across the cold air. The family loathed the very last to let one another go back out into their separate lives. Then, one by one, the cars back slowly out of the drive and pull away, their red tail lights moving off down the dark street and around the corner, and finally gone. The house grows quieter with each departure, one family less, and then another, the noise and the fullness draining slowly out of it like water from a tub. Those who stayed stand clustered at the door and wave until the very last car is out of sight. The cold flooding steadily past them into the warm hall, nobody willing to turn back inside until the final taillight has vanished. And then at last the door is closed against the night firmly, and the sound of it closing is very loud in the sudden ringing quiet that follows. For a moment everyone just stands there in the hall, in the abrupt stillness, a little stunned by it. A house that held 20 voices a minute ago holds 5 now, and the silence has a weight to it, a presence, filling the space the guests have left behind. The warmth of all those bodies is already beginning to fade from the rooms. A child, overtired, begins to cry about nothing and is gathered up. The grown-ups look at one another with the particular tired smile of people who have loved their company and are also, quietly, glad to have their house back. There is a particular ache in these goodbyes that we still know, the sweet sharp pain of parting from the people we see too seldom, made keener by the knowing that it may be a whole long year before the family gathers so completely again. It has not changed so very much, this lingering at the door, this reluctance to be the one who leaves. But then, when families still lived nearer and gathered more wholly, and yet still saved themselves up for the great days, the goodbyes carried a special weight, a sense that something rare was ending and would not easily come again. And as the last tail-lights faded down the cold empty street and the door swung shut against the dark, the house felt the loss of them all at once, emptied in a single hour of the warmth that had taken all day to fill it, holding now only the few who lived there, and the ringing quiet, and the lingering ghost of the day just ended. Now the house is quiet again, emptied all at once of its noise and its warmth, and what remains is the aftermath. There is cleaning still to do, the last of the glasses, the front room to be set right, the furniture to be moved back. But there comes a moment, at the very end of it, when your mother finally sits down. She lowers herself into a chair in the quieted house, her feet aching, her work at last complete, and she sits in the stillness she has not known since before dawn, and lets the long enormous day settle around her. The house bears the marks of the day in every room. The front room holds the dents in the rug, where all the chairs were pulled around into their friendly circle, the ashtrays full and needing emptying, the cushions crushed flat from a whole afternoon of company. There are glasses left on the side tables, ringed with the last of their drinks, and a stray coffee cup gone cold on the windowsill, and a child's small toy left behind under the sofa, forgotten in the rush of the leaving. The dining table stands stripped now but for the good cloth, marked here and there with a spot of gravy or a ring of cranberry, waiting to be cleared of its last few things and stripped and folded down. The whole house has the pleasant wreckage of a day that was fully and completely lived, and there is a little more to do yet before it is all set right. She does that last bit of tidying slowly because there is no hurry left in the day, and because her body has begun, finally, now that the guests are gone and the need to keep moving has passed, to feel every single one of the hours she's been on her feet. The glasses are gathered onto a tray and carried to the kitchen. Though she will not wash them tonight, they can soak until morning. A pillow is fluffed and set back in its place. The stray toy is picked up and put on the hall table to be returned to its owner another day. The worst of the ashtrays is emptied. And then, at last, there is nothing pressing left undone, nothing that cannot wait until the morning light, and she allows herself the one thing she has not allowed herself since long before the sun came up. She sits, the chair receives her, and she lets out a long, slow breath, the kind of breath a person only takes when they are finally truly done. And for a moment she simply sits there in the quiet, doing nothing at all, which is itself a strange and unfamiliar thing after a day of ceaseless doing. Her feet throb inside her shoes and she slips them off and flexes her tired toes against the cool floor. Her back aches from the bending and the lifting and the standing. Her hands, chapped from the hot water, rest at last in her lap. But underneath all the tiredness runs a deep and quiet satisfaction, the satisfaction of a great and difficult thing accomplished, and accomplished well. The day she began alone in the dark, cold kitchen before dawn is over now, fully over, and it was good. Everyone was fed, and fed well. Everyone was gathered under her roof and made welcome and sent home again full and loved and carrying their plates of plenty. The house was beautiful. The meal came together hot and whole and on time. Nothing was ruined, nothing forgot, no one went wanting. She made all of that happen, she and her 2 hands and her long day of unbroken labour, and now it is done, and she can sit. She thinks back over it, perhaps, in these quiet minutes alone, the early cold hour with the first cup of coffee and the whole silent house asleep above her. The great bird wrestled cold into its pan, the kitchen crowded and steaming and full of the women she loves, the full table and the bowed heads and the praise that came her way over the meal, the gold slow afternoon, the long goodbyes at the door. It went well. It nearly always goes well in the end, though she is worried every single year, lying awake the night before, that this would be the year it all came apart. But it did not. The family came, and was happy, and has gone home again, and that was the whole point of it, the entire enormous exhausting point, and it has been accomplished once more. It is a quiet worth honouring. This moment of the mother finally sitting alone in the emptied house, because it is a moment that so very often went entirely unseen. All day she was the hidden engine of everything, the one the whole day turned upon, and yet no one quite saw the true size of what she carried. The weeks of planning and the dawn rising and the 2 great labours of the cooking and the cleaning both falling to her. And now, at the very end, she sits alone in the deep stillness with her aching feet and her chapped hands and her quiet private pride, and no one sees this either. But it is perhaps the truest moment of her whole long day, this sitting down at last, this letting the great effort finally be over and behind her. And if you had been there to see her, still in her apron, resting quietly in the warm and silent house she had filled with life all day, you would have understood, maybe for the very first time, exactly what the holiday cost, and exactly who it was that paid for it, year after year after year, and asked for nothing in return but the sight of everyone she loved gathered happy around her table. And so we come to the very end of it, the house going dark room by room as the family climbs the stairs to bed. The good china will be washed and wrapped and carried back up to its high shelf tomorrow. The leaf will come out of the table. The envelope with its list will be thrown away. But tonight, everyone sleeps heavy and content, full of food and family, and the house settles into its deepest quiet, holding the warmth of the day a little longer, folding the whole enormous holiday gently away to be brought out and built again from nothing a year from now. The lights go off one by one, and with each one a room surrenders itself to the dark. The kitchen, which burned bright and busy since long before dawn, which was the beating heart of the whole day, goes dark at last. The last switch flipped, the counters clean and waiting for morning. The front room, where the men dozed in their chairs and the old stories were told and the gold afternoon light lay across the floor, falls into shadow, its cushions still dented, its air still faintly holding the smell of coffee and smoke. The stairs creak one by one under tired feet climbing slowly up to bed, and doors close softly down the darkened hall, and the house that rang all the long day with voices and laughter and the clatter of the kitchen is given over now, entirely to silence and the deep November dark. Outside, the cold, clear night holds the quiet street in its grip, and every window up and down the block is going dark in its turn, the whole town settling down together from the same long-shared day. Here and there a porch light burns on. A last car passes somewhere far off. The stars are hard and bright above the frosted roofs, and in 100 houses along 100 streets, 100 families are climbing their own stairs to their own beds, full and tired and content, the great day ending everywhere at once, in the same soft settling into sleep. In the bedrooms, sleep comes fast and heavy and welcome. There is a particular quality to the sleep that follows a great holiday, deep and dreamless and complete, the sleep of the well-fed and the worn-out and the deeply holy content. The children drop off almost before their heads have touched the pillows, worn down to nothing by the long day of cousins and running and excitement, their good clothes at last shed in a heap on the floor. The grown-ups follow soon after, too tired even to talk over the day the way they mean to, too heavy with food and warmth and the good exhaustion of it, carried down swiftly into rest by the sheer weight of all those hours on their feet. And the things of the day wait quietly in the dark to be put away. The good china sits stacked and drying by the sink to be wrapped tomorrow in its soft tissue and carried carefully back up to the high shelf where it will wait, unseen and patient, another whole year for its next single day of glory. The table leaf will be lifted out and the table shrunk back to its ordinary size and the leaf returned to its resting place in the attic dark. The good cloth will be laundered of its small stains and pressed and folded away in its drawer. And the envelope with its list, every last item on it crossed off now, its whole long work of planning finally complete, will be crumpled and thrown out with the morning trash, its purpose fully served. One by one the special things of the holiday will go back to their hiding places, and the house will quietly return to being its plain, ordinary self. There is something both a little sad and deeply, rightly fitting in this folding away. The great day is over, truly over, and it will not come again for a whole long turning of the year, and that is a small real grief, felt most keenly by the children who cannot imagine waiting so long. But it is also the very thing that makes the day so great, this rareness of it, this being saved for and leaned toward and built up over weeks, and then, when at last it comes, savoured down to the very last golden minute, and finally, gently, let go. The holiday is not a thing that stays. It was never meant to stay. It is a thing that arrives, that blazes warm and bright for one single long day, and then is carefully packed away, to be made again out of nothing when its season comes slowly back around. And that in the end is the quiet miracle of it, the thing worth holding on to as you drift now toward your own sleep tonight, that a whole family could build such a day out of nothing more than lists and labour and love, could fill an ordinary house with warmth and plenty, and gather everyone they cared for beneath one roof, and then, when it was done, could fold it all away without sorrow and trust, completely, that they would build it up again. Year after year from nothing by hand, with aching feet and chapped hands and full glad hearts, they made this warmth and this gathering and this love, and then they turned off the lights and slept and let the great day go, knowing in their bones it would come again. And so the house goes dark, and the family sleeps, and the long and exhausting and beautiful holiday is folded gently away, and kept safe in the quiet, and held in the heart through all the ordinary days, until its warm, bright season comes round once more. And so the day comes to its close, the way every one of those days finally did. We've walked it together from the very beginning, from the first list tucked behind the flour canister, through the cold, dark hour before dawn, the bird in the oven, the good china down from its high shelf, the door thrown open to the cold and the crowd, the long full table, the gold slow afternoon, and the last quiet lights going out one by one. A whole day built by hand, out of love and labour and the simple wish to gather everyone under one roof. And behind all of it were the people, the mother who rose in the dark and asked for nothing, the father at the head of the table, the women at the sink and the children in their corner, and the grandmother remembering it all. They did not think they were living in a golden age. They were just living, doing the quiet work of holding a family together, one holiday at a time, 1 year at a time, the way people always have. Maybe that is the thing to carry forward, out of that kitchen and into your own life. Not the recipes or the good plates, but the slowing down, the lingering at the table, the noticing of a warm room full of the people you love before it empties again. So tonight, as you let your eyes grow heavy, think of those warm, bright kitchens and the tired, loving hands that made them so. Let that warmth settle over you like a blanket pulled up in the dark. You are